Today, my wife and I are visiting Colonial Williamsburg, an amazing living history museum in Virginia that tells the early part of America's enduring story. Come along with me and my wife as we explore a history buff's paradise. That's coming up next.
If y'all have any questions or curiosities about anything, this is a very, very small representation of like a military encampment set up for traveling delegates coming through the city, right? So we're not in character, but we're all kind of doing different things and working on different stuff. Looks like Mr. Grant's cleaning up some pollen there. Looks like Martin's working on some, what are you working on?
Working on my wife's rapster.
Oh yeah. And then Chris over there is working on a wampum belt, and I'm just enjoying the sunshine. So, but feel free to talk to any one of us and ask us about what's going on here in Williamsburg in the 18th century, who we are today, anything y'all might be curious about. So the style of bow that I've got here and the arrows that I've got are all different eastern woodlands styles. So I've got this little black locust recurve, which is a bow that wasn't originally made for me. I made it with someone else in mind, but it's got a couple of quality issues that prevent me from giving it out. But it's black locust. It's about 35-40 pounds depending on the day. And it's a good little bow, but not really fit for me or my shooting style. The arrows that I have are cedar, ash, and viburnum. Also some river cane arrows in here. And most of them are two-fletch, traditional two-fletch, like this guy right here. So that's really, I mean, if you want to know something specific, that's the base details. There's not one thing that you make arrows out of. Things like river cane, cedar, viburnum, ash, all of those shafts are ash. There's all different types of materials that we'll use to make arrows traditionally. It just depends on what you have available in your region and what you prefer, what you're going to be using them for, how much time you're willing to put into those things, you know, so it's all going to be different. So weapons are meant for people, tools are meant for everything else, right? So, and just even to that sense, you know, it's very broad. Weapons are very specific, tools are very broad, right? Weapons are specifically meant to go out and use against other people, right? This bow is a tool. It's a tool for going out hunting, right? And so, you know, these arrows are not made for people. You know, they're not fletched for people. The bow is not made for use against people. And for us traditionally, they don't cross those lines, right? So like you see a hammer, right? That can't be a murder weapon because it's a hammer, right? And there's just a very clear mental block traditionally separate of European concepts of material items, right? As very fluid things. So hammer, you can bust somebody's head up with a hammer if you're like, you have that sort of mindset, right? Today, I understand that, but historically that is such a mental block that we know of. Tools and weapons are very clearly delineated. So these arrows are hunting arrows. You would never even think to turn them against a person, right? It just doesn't exist.
And what is your quiver made out of?
Poplar bark and leather. So it's a poplar bark tube that's covered up with deer hide, and it's got this nice silver band up around the top, painted with red ochre. It's got a finger woven strap. So poplar bark, basket quivers, leather quivers, animal skins like foxes, bobcats, otters, wolves. Those are all used for quivers of different sorts, but it all depends on what you're using. So like this quiver right here, I was working on a quiver this morning. I don't know if y'all saw it, leaned up against the wall, that was woven. That one is going to be for my fishing arrows. So shooting at fish and game birds and things like that. Arrows are soaked wet. If I put them back in here, it's just going to hold that moisture. But putting them in that woven quiver is going to let them dry out because it's got air flow.
So
makes
then,
sense.
I've got to ask, how do you try to hunt something that's underwater with an arrow? Because, like, I can understand going through air. Okay, you're a good enough shot, and you're able to make it. But how do you compensate for the challenges that water would have for fish?
Depends on your position, like where you are relative to that, because the refraction of that water changes how that works, right? So normally, what you want to do is you want to be as close to on top of that as possible, right? Because that limits your refraction. So let's say, for instance, this is my canoe right here, right? So I'm standing in my canoe on the water, and this dandelion right here is a fish, right? Instead of shooting directly at this dandelion, I actually am going to aim underneath it, because visually what I see is refracted off the surface of that water. So in shooting at a fish like right here, I would aim like right there, right? And the more of an angle you get, the farther down you have to aim, because your visual is more and more distorted. So that's usually how that goes. You want to get up as much on top, like directly down as possible.
Tools, we want this type of cookware, and then they'll set an agreed upon price, and then those Indian traders that are employed by the Colony of Virginia will purchase those goods and come out and do business. It's all up and down.
Remind me again, what are you making there?
A wrap skirt for a woman, specifically for my wife. So I can show you. Let me put this.
Yeah. They're gonna go and they're gonna gather those and break it down.
Roll down this seam up here. You can see the front seam there with the ribbon going up the front. We'll wrap kind of twice around, or once and a half around the waist, and then we roll down like you roll a towel down
Connected by that line. And so this example has been used a couple of times. They're going to be different sizes and shapes though. Some are as small as what I've got completed here thus far. This one will be around 3,000 beads, right around this area. And George Washington actually commissions one that has roughly like 10 to 15,000 beads in it. So it's 6 feet long, about 10 inches wide. So that'll give you an idea how big some of these really be. The size of them doesn't necessarily have like a hidden message or anything, but I think as far as that one, George Washington is kind of saying, I'm George Washington.
It's like
I can do
anything
this.
else. Yeah,
but it also was very important. It was
Yeah.
very important. It was with 13 different tribes, so that that was huge in and of itself. And the reason he starts doing that is, they're just equally participating. They got the Native people signing documents, and they notice this is more or less our way of solidifying that agreement. And I think that was important that George Washington kind of understood that, participated equally.
Well, that's a wrap for this Colonial Williamsburg video. I hope you really enjoyed it, getting to see another part of this amazing living history museum. If you like this sort of stuff, check out my other videos. Check out colonialwilliamsburg.org to plan your own visit here, because it's so much cooler in real life than it is on film. Till next time, this is History Buff, TN Photobug signing out, and I'm having a blast with the past.